Hello, we're here live. I'm alive. You're alive. The energy is wonderful. We have a beautiful doggy on set too. He is bringing beautiful. Is it a he or she, Daniela?
It's
It's a she.
yeah, Doodles the poodles.
Could we have a look? Can everybody see Doodles the poodles? My other half is now going to go insane because she is wanting a poodle in white. And I'm saying I've had two schnauzers all my life. I want a break because a doggy is not just for Christmas, it's for life, right? Even though, of course, she wants it for life, but you know, it's a lifelong. Every day you have to think about your holidays. You have to think about the stress of leaving your poodle somewhere with somebody else, and all of those things that are so important, because it's having a child. It's like a child that never grows up because
yeah, totally. She's an extension of me. Everywhere I go, she's next to me. There's no secrets when you've got a dog.
None. Absolutely. She's beautiful. She's your soulmate, healer, best friend, everything. Daniela, welcome to Mark Bajerski YouTube channel. This is the first for me, and I wanted to interview you first because I've known you a good long time now. You're true to your word. You're all. I don't like to call people truthers or humanitarian. All of those are just absolute stupid things. You are a beautiful soul who speaks the truth. That's how I see you. But you also have a great energy when it comes to helping people. No frills, no spills. Say it as it is. And I like that as well, because at least you know where you stand with Daniela. And you've been doing some amazing work as of late. And I have, and everybody will, you'll know this, Daniel. I have supported you in any way I can, and I'm always supporting people that I see are actually true to the work. I call it the work because many people say they work, but they actually do it to do something else. So a lot of people in the field of work that I see is they use the work to feed themselves in a certain way because that's more important. But what I've noticed with you is what's important is the work.
Yes.
And everything else is a bonus. Do you understand that, Daniela? If I'm making a mistake, tell me. But what I see from you is a genuine person who's making kind of an impact in this world. And sometimes you probably don't even see it, but I feel it. And that's why I wanted you on the show, because I want to start to get people out there who are genuine and who do the work. So the reason why you're on here is because we're going to have a two-way conversation, and it isn't going to be me just interviewing you. We're just going to talk to each other and interview each other. We're going to ask each other questions, because I feel that the audience will kind of like that, maybe, because we're having a chat. So how did it start for you, Daniela? Because the awakening isn't just being a spiritual seer, because everybody can see if they want, but how did it all start? Was it a young child that you saw injustice, or when was your moment where you think this is all bullshit?
Yeah, that's a funny one. Do you know, I think I always knew, and it's I hear this a lot from people, is there's something quite different about you in your family unit compared with the others, the whole black sheep type of thing.
Right.
Much the case for me, leaving home at a young age and kind of breaking free from the confines of what was expected from you at school and from your family and those sorts of things. And I think as I started to get a bit older and I set out on having my own family, and I kind of just always had this nagging sense that something didn't feel right.
Wow.
And I couldn't put my finger on it, but I knew I just didn't fit into the mold of you go to school, you grow up, you get married, you buy a house, you have a family, and that's it. I just, something in me just knew that wasn't what life was.
But you did that though, like I did. I did it. I went through the same process as everybody else, but we knew something was wrong. but yet we still went through that process, and we have children, right? So it's not like, oh, that was wrong, but there was something in that wasn't embraced. We just went through the motions, but we had to niggle that there was something wrong, right?
And I guess the only way to be able to identify that there was something wrong was by going through that process, because how would you ever have known, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of started off that way. And then all of a sudden, I started to notice people arriving in my life who had a completely different view of the world. And I remember this one friend of mine was explaining to me that he'd actually recently been to court with his daughter because she wasn't going to school. And he had a conversation with me for a good couple of hours about why the school system is so heavily flawed and why he didn't want his child there and how he took.
Wow.
And wow, is this guy crazy or am I missing something? And then a couple more friends started to appear who had started to see major issues with what was going on around the time of the Jimmy Savile stuff and everything regarding 9/11 and all of those sorts of things. And then you came along. And by this stage, I think I'd already been posting YouTube videos for a couple of years when we got in touch with each other for the first time. And I can't remember the exact conversation, but you said to me at some point, you might not understand why I'm here, but I do. And over the months, that started to resonate more and more as I began to get to know your work and what you were doing. And it was almost like this seamless flow. And I don't think I've ever told you this, but I have a lot of psychic dreams. A lot of the work
amazing
that goes into it, I do at night. So
wow.
This dream one night, it must be at least 7 years ago, because I remember where I was living at the time, and you were at my house with your wife at the time, and you put your hand on the crown of my head, and it was a gold ball of energy, and you put your hand on my head and it sunk down into my head. And at the time, again, I knew there was something odd about that, but I didn't know what. And then as the years progressed and you became so integral to my progression in the field of psychic work and healing and those sorts of things, it became obvious to me what that meant. It was that signal to me that that's where I was going, and that was my purpose, I suppose. So yeah.
Really interesting. Some of the observations that I've found over the years working with shamans and different people who do the different work that nobody else does. Once was said to me, most of your work, Mark, is when you're asleep. And that was said to me 3 times. And I started laughing, just like when some people said I was somebody else in a past life. I just laughed, because, hey, whatever. But I started to understand this more and more as the years went by. It took a while, but then I started thinking, why was I getting up and having these vivid dreams? Or are they dreams? Are they real dreams? Or is it possible that the spirit can move through the night and help people?
Yeah.
And so you can't take credit for it if it's your spirit, because the physical body doesn't know what's going on. So there's no ego there. And like, okay, that's weird. And I'm going to have to tell you this, and this is the truth, Daniela. I probably get between 3 and 10 messages a day saying you was in my dream last night.
That was the question I was about to ask you, if that happens to you, because it happens to me all the time.
Which means that because in my head, my way of thinking is, oh my God, this person's like falling in love with me or something, because that's the biggest chat up line ever, because I fancy you, but I don't know how to say, oh, I dreamt about you last night. But then I realized, that's your ego, Mark. They're actually meaning what they're saying. They mean what they're saying. They really did have a dream last night. And then I started, this was years ago. And even today, I can show you a message now that somebody said, were you helping me last night? Did you come to my house? And I'm saying, and I tell you, this morning when I woke up, I felt like somebody had knocked me, like somebody dragged me through bushes and hedges and over mountains and underneath the water. I woke up thinking, whoa, some heavy work was done last night.
Yeah.
So I think there is something in it, Daniela. I don't know about you, but I think when people say, oh, you know what, because I don't think this is a one of, oh, Mark or Daniela special. That's bullshit. I think we all do the work. It's just some people know it and some people don't. So the thing is, Daniela, what I'd like to ask you now is that once you progressed from, I think it's a progression, it might not be, but a different path, which was from sharing the truth about what injustice to now kind of like, okay, let me try and help people on an individual level. How's that feeling at the moment? How does that feel compared to being on YouTube and like having massive amounts of people listening to you talk about, did she just say that? Come here, listen to what she just said. Oh, we're going to have to attack her. We're going to have to attack her.
It was terrible.
I loved it because it was the truth.
Well, and this is the thing. I think I just didn't care. And when you don't care, in the sense that you're not afraid of what people think of you, I think that's so valuable. If you put yourself out on somewhere like YouTube, you know yourself, a huge following, you're gonna have every walk of life that interacts with you via that medium. And obviously there were people that really didn't like what I was doing, and there was people that absolutely adored what I did.
And half on some on the fence, some yes, some no.
Yeah.
Right. Crazy, you're wonderful. I'm not so sure.
And you know, at the time I was very angry when you first start to discover that pretty much everything you have believed to be true about the world is a nonsense.
Yeah.
You're angry, you're furious. You know, it affects your children, especially when you're a parent. You're just horrified that you've brought your children into something and you've raised them in a certain way, right, and then have to go back and unteach them everything. So I was really angry. And I think as time went on and my experiences began to change and shift, and you know, when spirit and when the universe starts to humble you,
yeah,
your outlook changes, and you realize that when you have had a lot of mountains to climb in life and you've had experiences that you at times cannot even begin to fathom how you survived,
right,
you find this compassion,
right,
that probably just is exclusive to people who have experienced major trauma in their life.
Right.
And that's kind of where I guess it's like, you know, you're walking down this path. It reminds me a little bit of that scene in Forrest Gump where he's running and all these people start joining.
Right.
It's a little bit like that.
Yeah.
That people migrate towards you because they can feel that sense of, there's that recognition, that soul recognition.
Right. I get that, but to a degree also, people without knowing know that when you are in your truth.
Yeah.
I think there's a massive energy of knowing your truth. Most people actually say they're in the truth, but actually don't believe it or know it. And that I call them false prophets. They're just regurgitating information. But when you're in your truth and you know it, people feel that because it's an energy that spans across the world and people feel it from everywhere. That's why you probably get messages all the time from all over the world saying, I need you to help me.
Yeah. And there's a rawness, I think, when you know, you, like you say, with the false prophets, you see this absolute constant 100% love and light. And it's just not, it makes you want to be sick, you know.
If you just say all day, then if everybody sits down and says all day, yeah, but not everybody is sitting down saying a lot of people are doing some bad stuff. Like the guy who's just about to kill somebody. Well, that worked.
Yeah. If somebody's stabbing someone in the street, just go and hug them. It'll be fine.
As they're stabbing them, give them a big hug.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You know,
Yeah.
you realize how ridiculous that is and how ridiculous they sound to somebody who does the work.
Yeah.
I'm talking about really does the work. Then a lot of people might understand watching this thing. You know what? They might have a point there. They might have a point. There is some. We're not advocating violence.
No.
That's what we're saying. We're just pointing out injustice and saying, actually, mate, there's something wrong here. Everybody, there's something wrong over there. We need to sort it out as a community. Because I like the idea of a community, but there isn't any. That's why community is being killed deliberately. Exactly. So anyway, let's move on, because now we get to know you a little bit. We're going to talk today about tarot and the tarot cards. I want to personally say this. The tarot cards are not the be-all and end-all in my life for tarot reading or for psychic reading or for spiritual reading or for energetic reading or for healing. But they are a tool, and they serve me well for the years that I've done it. I don't live, eat and breathe it. I don't say don't touch my cards. I don't say I need my cards or else I can't do it. They're just a beautiful tool. How do you feel about this particular deck of cards? What do you feel? And what I've just said, does it make any sense? Oh, okay, there you go.
It absolutely does. And, you know, it's funny, obviously, because now, very gratefully, I have 2 sets of this deck.
Nice.
And I've worked with these for a good few years now, so they're rough around the edges. That, you know, they're a bit dirty, and yeah, mine are nowhere near like yours. But
hey, they're doing good though. Look, let's get a fresh. Show me a fresh deck to the ones that you've used. Have you got a fresh deck?
A fresh deck downstairs, and when
hang on, I've got a fresh deck here. So
it's so shiny.
Hold yours up again. Okay, so move yours to a little bit to that side. There you go. Mine's there and there. So here you go. Look at that.
It's amazing.
So doing really good. I can see just by your deck.
Off that.
I can see it. And what that means is you're using them, because I used to hear this again, people saying that they're major readers and all that. And I'd say, could I have a look at your deck? And they'd show it me, and it looked like this. And I'd think, no, actually, if you're a major reader, it should look like this. Yours is showing that you're doing work. I mean, it doesn't take a Sherlock Holmes to see that you're doing the work through cards. But also, how do you feel about that deck? Because they're not in English per se, they're in Spanish, right? So how do you feel about that? Did that shock you at first, or how do you feel?
Actually, the fact that they're in Spanish makes absolutely no difference to me at all, which is quite interesting. I've used other tarot decks over the years. I have a couple of the more conventional tarot decks, and I can't stand them. And I know everybody's different in terms of what they work with, but I couldn't imagine using another deck as my partner. Because that's how I feel about these cards. It feels like a partnership for me. And if you're respectful to them, because they're incredibly powerful, and if you respect them, it's weird. It's almost like they have a life force, in the sense that you communicate with them. And if you're very respectful of the power of them, they will treat you very kindly.
Right, good point.
Which it probably isn't coming out right, but it's just the way it makes the most sense to me, is that still every day after all of these years of working with them, I see new things. They're so versatile. And there's no fear with these cards. You know, like I scan YouTube now and again and see readers. There's thousands of tarot readers on YouTube.
Uh-huh.
And there's some really good ones, but there's some atrocious ones as well. And they make their cards scary. And when I have clients that come to me and say, I'm really nervous about having this reading, in my heart, I smile, because in my heart, I know 100% that there's nothing fearful about these cards.
Only the person who's reading the cards. And that is really a valid point that people should be aware of, that they should attune to the person that they're going to have a reading with and feel comfortable.
Yeah.
so important, because a lot of people, I don't know if you ever know this, but whenever you do the shows, I don't know if you ever could be asked doing the shows, but I did the shows because my first mentor said it's good for you. So I did the shows, and I noticed certain types of people would run round all the psychics till they got the answer that they were waiting for. So I find it fascinating that they weren't really attuned to anybody. They were just wanting the answer of what they wanted. So they ignored everybody else's saying, and then, oh, this person's good. Why are they good? Because they gave me the answer what I wanted, which is quite fascinating. So the first thing I would suggest to anybody who's watching this, if you're going for a reading, that when you go for a reading, you should embrace that reading, and that's it. Leave it at that. Don't run to a next reader and to a next reader. And even if the message is maybe a little bit more challenging or different from what you wanted, the answer, I wouldn't run to another psychic. That would be probably the most harmful thing for your path, because then you'll ruin the actual reading that you've got. I think that's my feeling. I would never go from one to another.
No, and I have a client a recent client that I've only been reading for probably for about the last 6 to 8 months. And she said to me, she said, over the years, I've had hundreds and hundreds of readings. I've been to so many different readers. I've been conned. I've been lied to, all kinds of stuff like that. And she said, you are now the only person that I would come to.
Right.
And that obviously it feels nice to hear that from somebody, because they trust you and they trust your work, which is great.
And it's confirmation. It's confirmation that you're doing the work right. That to me is really important.
Yeah, and it's nice for a client to reach that place where they don't feel the need to rush around and look for other people, and whatever message you bring to them, they can find a peace with that.
I was working next to a well-known psychic in the UK, and she was next to me, and I couldn't help overhearing. She was bullying every single person who was sat in front of them. And the bullying was, I'm telling you, this is da-da-da. And then they were saying no, she was saying yes. And she's a big lass, a big, strong, butch lass. And and people were getting up petrified of what she'd said. And she was like a school bully. She was literally like a school bully. Now, there was a gift in her, there's no doubt about that, but there was also a huge ego issue as a child. And I thought, you know what? One of the things that I recognize is that when I'm reading, I can't bring my issues into a reading. I went for a reading once with a guy who was gay, and his boyfriend was actually opposite him doing tarot cards. And this guy started reading, and my daughter was next to me, and he just said, the woman that you're with, she's not your soulmate. She's not this, she's not that. You're not good for each other, blah, blah, blah. My daughter's like nearly crying. I'm like, I didn't come for a reading for any of that. I came for a reading about something completely different. Afterwards, we left. Somebody said, him and his boyfriend had a big argument an hour before, a really bad argument. And I thought, okay, well, that's interesting. And what I observed from that is that you can actually bring your pain and suffering to a reading. And although he's right, we did end up splitting up, but we split up like 10 years after. So was it right or wrong? Well, he could easily say it was right. And was she my soulmate? Well, what is a soulmate anyway? We were meant to be together. We were together. So for me, I struggle with a lot of readers who bring their baggage and their opinions and their ego with it. I don't know how you work in that sense, but for me, I try to be, I take a deep breath and clear every thought in my mind, and then say, okay, this is a clear painting. I'm just about to paint a picture for you. I don't know what the picture is going to look like. I have no idea, but I am not bringing my stuff with me. And one thing I do teach is don't read when you're upset. Don't read when you're when you're sad. Don't read when you're happy, because it doesn't make any sense to you.
Oh, absolutely. Like I don't have like a diary of specific dates and times that I leave open for readings. I very much flow with that, in the sense that if that, you know, there are certain times of the month where I would be absolutely useless. And last week I had a client who was booked in. I'd had a dreadful night's sleep. I'd had an awful day the day before, and I thought, I cannot by any stretch give this client my full um you know focus and the respect that they need from me.
Yeah,
So
we all deserve that. 100%. I agree.
yeah, so I postponed. They were so incredibly gracious about it,
Yeah.
which
No.
is, and said, look, you know, I'm fully appreciative that these things happen at exactly the right time, which is wonderful when you've got a client that is that, you know, understanding. But I think what's important for clients to understand is that if you postpone because you know you're not in the right mindset, you're doing it for them, not for yourself.
Right, absolutely. And do you teach that when you have like a student come and want to learn tarot? Is this do you give them the foundations first before you start the tarot teaching? Do you do that?
Yeah, I only got one student at the moment, and she came to me, a good friend of mine, and she asked me to help teach her the meanings of the cards, and you know,
Yeah.
And I give the kind of basis underneath it first, because one of the first things she was concerned about was whether she would be able to do this. And I said to her, everybody can do this.
Exactly.
It's just, all it is just these layers that we create there of these beliefs that we're not attuned, or that you have to do something special to become psychic. It's just there, and all you have to do is gently allow it to kind of open itself up. There isn't there's She said to me, well, how do I do it? What do I do? And I somebody else has asked me this question this week too, like, how do I become more psychic? And
Yeah.
for, I don't know about you, but that's not a question that you can answer, because you can't become more psychic. You just, we all just are.
Yeah, we can all ride a bike. We just need to learn how to get on it, and then have the fear taken away from falling off. And that's how I see it. We can all ride a bike. We just need to get through all of those feelings, because it's all to do with blocks.
Yeah. And I think we're kind of trained that in order to be able to do something in life, you have to learn. There's a process you have to learn, and
Yeah.
and this is, it's kind of stripping that back and allowing them to see that that's just not how life actually genuinely really works, and particularly when you're doing this work.
That's right. It's so very natural, and it's organic, and there is no push or force. There's no real teaching. It just is a flow, and you watch somebody like a seed turn into a beautiful flower and go in their own direction. And we encourage people to be that in all walks of life. So the cards then, Daniela, you've been working with these cards now. You've left the other cards behind because you get a lot out of these cards.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't think I could read any other type of card if I tried.
Right, exactly. So now you've become connected to this card. People might not understand this, but as far as I'm aware of my own reading, if I turn this card over and look at you, I will see something completely different in this card than I would my next client, which means that they are not cards that we just go, oh, this is the reason why, because it says it on here. No, we open up and we see things within the cards that even now, after 20 years of working, I still see different things in the cards. Can you imagine how amazing that is when you open to that?
And that shows the level of genius that went into the artwork on these cards.
Totally. Do you think he knew? Do you think he knew, or do you think he channeled?
I think he channeled.
Me too.
Absolutely. There's no way that this is just logic, you know. The magic in this every day with different clients. Even if I had, say I had 2 clients on the same day and I pulled the exact same cards for both of them, they would both have a completely different read, regardless of the fact that it's the same card sitting there.
People, but then if you read for somebody, right, and then they go away and then they ring you up saying, look, I just need some confirmation, and you go, you know what, I've read for you, you don't really need confirmation, you've already got it, just wait till things start to happen. Then they insist, they come back, you don't know what you said last time, you start reading again and they go, well, that's exactly the same as last time. Yeah. I mean, I don't know, like you, I don't know how many clients I have in a week, you know, maybe 50 or 100. And how do I know what I said to that client? So I just sit down and read again. And I said, and then they say, well, that's exactly what you said, word for word, different cards, but word for word. So if that's the case, then why do you want to keep coming back for? Why have you just wasted 120 euros? That's a lot of money.
It is.
That. And a lot of times I used to say, forget it, you don't have to pay. If you got the same reading, you don't have to pay. But actually, that's why don't come again. Because I feel guilty because I've just told you the same bloody thing and I'm now having to charge you, which I don't want. So I'm not charging a lot of the times because they just wanted the comfort. I think a lot of people are they know it, but this brain kicks in and says, you need to ask again, and the questioning of this brain is our downfall sometimes if we don't use it correctly. If we just don't use this brain correctly, we can mess this world up and do things like inject people with something that killed loads of animals and still say, I want it.
Yeah.
It's incredible what this has done to humanity. The most, what we call genius of brains, the science and the doctors, and like, are you kidding me? I mean, what is it that you don't see? What I'm looking at and you don't see? I don't know about you, but I'm in awe of the blindness of what's going on right now. I have never seen anything in my entire life that is so profoundly unbelievable that when I look at it, I think I have no words left to the deepness of how hypnotized and brainwashed humanity has become.
It is absolutely jaw-dropping to a level I can't even really articulate. It astounds me.
Exactly.
That there is such, obviously fear is a very powerful thing, but I think we're in a place now where fear can't really be, you can't attribute fear to a lot of people's behavior at the moment, because a lot of people aren't actually scared. They're just going along with this nonsense.
Totally.
Because they think, oh, well, I'll be able to go on holiday, or I'll be able to do such and such. And
totally.
Without any comprehension, no further thought into it than that. And when you show them something to challenge that, it's like you've asked them to do a 20-hour shift for no pay. There's that much disinterest, you know, just the last thing they want to do. It's like this inability to accept responsibility for our own progression as a humanity, as a collective, as a whole.
Total
the responsibility.
Totally. So when somebody sits with you, Daniela, and you attune to that energy through your cards, when you lay your cards down and you begin the session, do you have a certain practice that you like to follow to make it comfortable for you, so you just get into it? For me, I used to lay 4 cards this way up, like that, lay them down so you can't see them, and then add to them cards till there's no more cards left. The 78 cards are 78, right? Is it 78? I can't remember how many cards there are, but we lay the cards out, and then I take, out of them 4, I take 1, 2, 3, 4, put them together, put them down, and take the other 4 and put them at the other side. So I've got 2 sets of cards. I don't know what I'm going to use. I don't know when I'm going to pull them, what from where. I just go with that moment, like I would do walking on stage and giving a talk. I get a candle, don't know what I'm going to do, and then I start talking. I think that's the same energy. Does that make any sense?
Absolutely. So I don't have 4, I have 6 piles.
Brilliant.
So I've got 3 on one side, 3 on the other, and then obviously, face down. And I go into a process of I like to breathe people's energy in, and it's probably not even really actually doing anything. I don't know if it's doing anything, but for me, I will take in a very deep breath and imagine myself,
that's amazing,
flowing into me, and then I will be drawn to whichever side. But more often than not, I'll take a minute or 2 just before I connect with whoever I'm going to read for, and I'll just clear everything out. I'll ask very specifically to for the client to receive whatever type of healing, whether it's peace or love, whatever answers. And I'm finding that so effective, because when they've had their reading, they'll say to me, do you know, I was feeling so in need. Sorry.
No, sorry. The dog has a voice just like you and I.
I was, they'll say to me, I was feeling so in need of a healing or something, and without doubt, they're always delivered from spirit exactly what it was they felt they needed.
Right. So it's not just a reading; it's a healing session too.
Yeah, it's starting to become that, very much so.
And have you not noticed how the way you're working is starting to make you feel like, oh my God, this is like things are changing, and this is happening and that's happening. So for me, I noticed that from the first day I started reading till 1 year, and then the next year and the next year, and you realize that, wow, there's new things happening to your client. So I think that's because you clear away more of your fear and you allow the energy in that needs to be entered. We limit our healing by whatever it is, but sometimes without knowing, we organically become more stronger because we trust the moment and what's happening. And a lot of people, I've got to be honest, do fear everything. And that fear that brings the energy in the room, that I believe spirit can't come in and do their ultimate work. But when you are in a place of peace and love and harmony and trust, I believe that's when the greatest work, then the greatest shamans do the work. When I used to do my circle nights, that because I trusted every moment that was going to happen.
Yeah, and it's funny, because that was the word I was about to use. It's this trust that develops over time. And for me, the cards are they're not the be all and end all of the reading. They're an aspect of it, but you develop a personal relationship and a partnership with them, and you develop a trust in them like you would a partner. You know how they operate. You know that there's going to be times when they completely surprise you. I gave a very quick reading. A friend a couple of nights ago asked if I could just have a quick look. It was quite late. I was feeling fine, so I thought, yeah, I'll just. And it was funny because I had this moment. They'd given me some prior information to the situation, so obviously in my head I'd allowed for a couple of minutes this idea of that I knew what was going to come out. I thought, right, well, I know roughly what I'm going to see. And so I was floored when that didn't come out at all, and it actually came out in a completely different way.
Beautiful. That's beautiful. That's really powerful stuff.
Yeah, so much, because then you realize that these cards aren't a basic tool. They're complex in a sense, and they've got so much character that you can be surprised still after all these years and working every week, hundreds of clients. They still surprise me.
So the question is, if you were with somebody that you loved and cared for, and he says, it's either me or these, what would it be?
Well, you know,
I'm just kidding, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I can't actually.
Let me think about that.
Imagine me having someone in my life that would tell me what to do.
I wouldn't. I thought it was funny though. It's like I had a fallout with a friend who was a brilliant reader, and anyway, it was a long story short. Somebody says, "Oh yeah, he cleared all the stuff out. Everything went." He said, "I don't want any of it. I get it away. I don't want any of it. Just leave the car. I'll just take these though." Yes, good for you. Because deep down they know. Doesn't matter what's happened, how upset we are about whatever it is in life. We know what is important.
Yeah.
To me, they were important, and I believe now he's doing really well again. I don't know, but I really hope so. But I really feel that this life that we live, the fact that we've been through so much pain and suffering, teaches us the pain and suffering that we then feel for our client. Because if you've never felt that, how are you on earth going to be able to do a reading for somebody that you don't feel? You haven't the capacity to feel. So I've met loads of arrogant people who do readings, who were looked after by their mum and dad, had a really lovely life, took care of them, and then came into this field of work, didn't get bullied, didn't anything. And it's like, they're like hard as nails, and they've no concept. Brilliant readers, but no concept to the empathy that we feel for our client. And that, I believe, is another level of reading. It's another level. And I think you've got that.
Absolutely. And I just feel that there's times where I'll see things for clients, and I don't know how it works for you, but for me personally, it's like these blocks of understanding come through, and then I translate that into words that come out.
Right.
And I can feel the pain or the sense of loss or whatever it is that they're feeling, because my body has experienced that to some degree in a personal situation of my own, and it enables you to be able to articulate that and empathize to a degree that gives your client that trust in you.
Exactly. They can feel that you feel that I feel. It's like sitting with somebody who knows nothing about nothing because they haven't really experienced anything. And then you're saying, this happened to me and that happened to me. And they're going, oh, yeah. It's like, wow, I've just wasted my energy telling this person this because they just don't feel it. They don't feel it because they can't. There's no measuring stick. They've never been through it.
Yeah.
So I like readers who have been, like I said, smashed around, beaten up, punched a bit because they're bullied and being divorced, had days gone wrong, be screamed at. Perfect. That's the person I want to be with because they've got life experience, which means that when they read the cards, they're going to feel, they're going to understand. They've got the experience of what they're seeing as part of, okay, I feel that, I understand that feeling. And that's empathy. That is so important in a reading, I think, as well. People say, oh, don't empathize, but you've got to have, for me, I've got to have that empathy to really go deep into what I need to help this person because of what I felt. If I don't feel it, how can I help it? It's like, that's not even important.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
There are times where I absolutely want to throw my arms around a client that I'm reading for and just squeeze them until they feel okay. You know, it's part of that. It doesn't make sense to me. And you know, ultimately, when you empathize with your client because you can see the similarities and you can understand their pain, ultimately that leads you to a place where you never ever tell them what to do, ever.
Absolutely. That is so right. That is so true and so perfectly said. Wow. Absolutely. And you know that there are times that a client will push you. And it happened to me once and only once. And that was the last time I ever did it. And it actually came true. She didn't die of cancer. Am I going to die or not? And I said, you know what? I don't see death. I only see life. So I don't ask me to look for death. It's not what I want to do. Please, Mark, I love you. There's only me and you here. You know who I am. We've been in circles before. Blah, 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 blah. I only just started. And I turned over. Is this person going to survive? And I'm feeling sick as I'm doing it. And as I turned it over, it was the sun card, the only card, which is in my world, yes, meaning you're going to survive. And she did. She's alive till this day. But that even though it was the right answer, and it's what she wanted, it was the most valuable lesson. That is not, I am not playing God. Don't ask me that. This is about how we can help on your journey, because we all die. We don't die. We move to the light, but we all go back home and we all become alive. We're actually dead here. What I'm realizing more now is that we're actually dead. Our spirit and soul is so dead.
Yeah.
It's unreal. Right, all right.